Thanks for joining us online today. We're so glad you clicked on today's video, and we hope it inspires you and helps you to see God moving in your life. Let's jump right in.
Everybody. Oh man, God, y'all are rough today. All right, nobody's excited for Christmas. You're not happy to be here. We have $100 for everybody today before you leave. How you feeling? Yeah. All right. Y'all are horrible. I'm also a liar, so that's not true. Hey, so glad that you're here, and I just want to say we have a baptism today. We're going to do baptisms, and so this is set up, and we have clothes back there in the back. We had baptisms for 9 a.m., and we're going to do that as well at this service. So if you're here today and you're like, I did not come prepared, that's okay. We have everything that you need back there. So before the end of service, you can get up whenever I tell everybody to kind of get up at the end of the sermon. You can make your way to the back, and you can grab some clothes and just come right up over here, and we would love to just celebrate with you today. I mean, that's just an awesome moment to celebrate the life change that God has made in your life. And so I would just say this, whether you're ready or not, whether you want it or not, Christmas season is upon us, right? Who is already, you'd say you have more than half your Christmas presents already bought? Yeah? Gosh. Awesome. Hey, we're doing pretty good. But I would just say this, if you haven't already started, or like for some reason you forgot Christmas is the same time as it is every other year, this is your Christmas countdown. You better get with it, and don't forget your wife or those people close. I was thinking about that the other day. We were like, oh, we're almost done. And somebody's like, yeah, I hadn't bought for my wife yet. And I was like, oh man, I got a wife. That's right, forgot about that. So we still got to get with it, but man, we got some stuff up. Christy had the tree up before Thanksgiving was over, and I felt weird about that, but it just is what it is. So it's here, it's upon us, and so as we're going into this season, we also want to let it be a setup so that we can talk about some biblical truth and maybe help us to grow closer to God through this process and through this season. And what we're doing is a series called Do You See What I See? And it's kind of this idea of that saying, walk a mile in my shoes, right? We're like, don't you judge me until you know what I'm going through. Walk a mile in my shoes. You know what I mean? And so that's kind of how we want to approach some of these Bible characters over the next couple of weeks. It's seeing a moment through their eyes. And whenever we can remember and realize that, these were real people in a real time going through real things. And when we take a moment and pause and look at life through their eyes, maybe we can begin to see how they responded and maybe how we respond, not just in the season, but in our own life as well. And maybe God can speak to us through a few things today. Today we're going to look at this character called the Innkeeper. The Innkeeper. We know about this guy, right? He's got a bad rap, and we've seen the plays or whatever it is. The Innkeeper. So as we back up and we look at the story of Christmas, whether you've ever been in church before, your very first time, or whatever, you at least know the things surrounding Christmas. Let me give you a little synopsis. There's this lady named Mary and this guy named Joseph. They're betrothed to be married, right? And then Mary walks in one day and she said, I'm pregnant. And Joseph said, oh snap, we ain't done nothing. And so whose is that? And so the whole thing, she's like, oh, it's God's. There was an angel. And he said, yeah. But after an angel came to him, it was all, that he believed, and so they're heading forward, and she's going to have the Son of God, and this is an awesome moment. She's actually having an actual miracle baby, it's an awesome moment. She's about ready to pop, and here's what happens. They get a push notification and a text blast on their iPhones, and Caesar has sent this out to everyone, and oh no, there's a census. So now, it's not like the census nowadays, right? Census nowadays, there's a guy that comes by your door, he knocks on your door, it takes about 3 minutes, and we're super annoyed with the guy just for bugging us for that long, right? Some of you haven't had the census yet, but you will. It's coming up. It's coming up. And they'll knock on your door and you're going to answer some questions. Not in this time. She's about ready to pop, and what they have to do is in that time, they had to go back to their ancestral village or ancestral town of where their family lineage was from. And so Joseph was from the lineage of David, and David was from a little town called Bethlehem. So they load up on their donkeys and camels and Ford F-150s, and they head out to Bethlehem. So they are headed out, and I'm sure the chaos of traveling unexpectedly, and she's pregnant, and Joseph's looking over, did you really have to bring that bag? And we've got too much, and so they're headed out. I'm sure there's probably, because they're real people, frustration, and it's a difficult time, and so they hop on their camels and they get into a camel traffic jam right whenever they're headed into the direction that they think they're supposed to be going. And so they're probably like, is there like a camel wreck ahead? Like, what's going on? They're looking around, you get out of your car and you're looking and like, what's going on? And they think, surely not all these people are going to the same place as me. But sure enough, all these people have come into the town of Bethlehem. Yes, I'm taking some creative liberties, okay, with this story, just a little bit. But here's the idea and what happened. Bethlehem was a super small village. And so during this time, for all these people who were from the lineage of David and everybody else who was from the city, they're coming back to this census. It would have been completely overrun with people. To the point there would have been more visitors than there would have been residents of this town. And I think back during a few years ago during the hurricanes that came through, if anybody remembers that people were coming up through Lufkin, and there were more people stranded around the loop than there were residents of Lufkin. Anybody remember that happening? I remember driving, and like people were just pulled over, they're out of gas. Because why? What happened? Like they were driving, and we were kind of overrun. There was no gas left, and there was not enough resources to man all the people that was coming through our city and all the demand that was put on us. So with that same lens, think about Bethlehem, right? We've read this story so many times. It's easy to just kind of graze over what's happening here. It's this little village, and they're filled to capacity. And in walk Mary and Joseph with the crowds. That's where we pick up the story in Luke chapter 2, 6-7. It says, and while they were there in Bethlehem, the time came for her to give birth. She's like, Jojo, it's his time. And he's like, no, it's just, that's what do they call them, something Hicks or whatever, like that. That's not real contractions. They better not be right now. And she's like, no, he is coming. You got to get me somewhere. And they're still in line, like waiting, and she's having the baby right now in this very inconvenient moment. And she gave birth to her firstborn son and wrapped him in swaddling clothes and laid him in a manger. We've read it so many times, we sometimes forget the reality of what's really going on. Like laid him in a manger, in a horse trough. Why? Because there was no place for them in the inn. There was no place for them to stay. They show up to a town that is completely booked up. And this is where we encounter this character. Here's what I find interesting about this character of the innkeeper. He's kind of projected into the story between the black and white of the pages because the innkeeper is never actually even mentioned. There's an inn. And so the assumption is there's got to be somebody that told them that you can't stay. And I kind of want to approach this idea because even though we don't see the specific guy, there's a lot we can learn about the idea of an innkeeper and what happened in this situation and what we can kind of glean from this. I remember one time we had taken a bunch of teenagers to a retreat. And there's about 30 teenagers and about 5 or 6 leaders that had went. And we were back from the retreat, and we were hungry, and we were just stopping somewhere. And you stop at the only place that you ever really stop when you got a bunch of hungry teenagers and you want to eat on the cheap, Cece's Pizza, right? We went in, and we're like, we can just eat. It'll be cheap. We can get and go. And I won't forget the look on the worker's face whenever we walked in with 30 teenagers and leaders. they looked at us like, y'all have got to be crazy. You know, you've lost your minds. Like that deer in the headlights looked like, oh no, what are we gonna do? You ever had that panic feeling? You ever work like fast food or, you know, retail or something like that, and you're like, and you got a rush come in and you weren't ready for it? Like that was the panic look. And as soon as we walked in, they're like, more pizza, more pasta, more everything. And I was like, I'm so sorry. They're like, next time could you please call ahead? And I'm like, hey, I'm sorry. But that kind of feeling and that kind of look, I can only imagine every person in Bethlehem that had a business, Innkeeper including, would have had that feeling like, what's going on? Where are these people from? Going to a panic mode. Not enough people, not enough food, too many people. Not enough room, too many people. And I can only imagine because he would have been used to, and the city would have been used to just a few little travelers coming through at one time, and now just droves of people coming through. And if we can kind of put ourselves in that shoes for a minute, can you imagine he's getting people checked in? Room number 5 doesn't have any towels. He's called in extra help, turned the vacancy sign off, and he's panicked. Mary and Joseph, they've been waiting in line. Again, creativity implied here. Waiting in line like at Six Flags. You ever been to Six Flags, right? You're one of those, like a theme park, and you're waiting in line for like 3 hours, and then 5 people in front of you are right whenever you're there. Sorry, the ride's closing down. And you're like, what? You forget you're a Christian for a few minutes, right? I've waited this many hours of my life, and then I can't get on the ride. Hey, you know what? At least perspective would say better for it to break before you got on, you know, and then you get on. But can you just imagine? They've been trying to find somewhere to stay, and as soon as they get up to the front, booked up, closed, no room. I'm sure that like a retail worker, Target, Best Buy, Walmart worker on Black Friday when they just ran out of TVs and they got the massive crowds and they just looked up and said, sorry, we're out. I'm sure that's probably all he had time to do is like, sorry, we're closed, right? Like that's all there is. And then close the doors and go on about his business. I'm sure it's frantic and panic would have been everywhere in this city, including whoever had to reject them from staying. Obviously, that happened because there was no room. They were rejected from staying. I would say this, just like the first Christmas, right? The season is characterized by a lot of things, and busy and chaotic is still part of it. You know, you would think the Savior coming into the world would have came into this perfect situation, right? Like, yeah, I just ushered in, everything goes great. But ever since even at his birth, he was identifying with our life, identifying with the craziness and the panic and the chaos and all the stuff that comes with life. He entered into that. He entered into that chaos, and that's what he was born into. And it really, not just this season, but just life in general, man, it's just busy and it's crazy and it's bustling, and there's always somewhere to be. Someone else needing something. There's always another bill stacking up. Yeah, another paycheck you're waiting for. Anybody there with me? You know, like waiting on Friday. What you do? Where you working on Friday? You know, well, we're on that paycheck. There's always more to-do list. There's more names getting added to the gift list. Anybody else? You're like, oh, I forgot the 4th cousin twice removed. We gotta buy them something. You know, and it just seems like it just can so easily get out of control. If there was an innkeeper, he would have been so incredibly overrun and busy. And I think the idea with that, we can identify with. We can get that. There's another thought, though, about this innkeeper or this inn situation. Theologians and Bible scholars some of them have a different train of thought, and it's this, that maybe there wasn't even an inn at all. And here's what I mean, because the Greek word used for inn there is this word called kataluma. And kataluma is literally defined as upper room or guest room. And so other places that we see this in the Bible there's one situation where Jesus was having the Last Supper, dinner with his disciples before he was going to his death, and they went and they had this last dinner in a kataluma, an upper room, a guest room of a house. And when we read the story of the Good Samaritan, where they pick the guy up out of the ditch and he brings him to an inn, which is like a hotel that we think of. That actually was a different Greek word that was used there. And so we don't really know. There's different trains of thought. Was it like a hotel or was it somebody's house? The thought is that since it's David's ancestral village, he most likely would have had family that lived there. People that he would know and would have had maybe some arrangements to go stay in their kataluma, their guest room, their upper room for his family to go and have provision for. Now, this is the case, that really means something even deeper and something bigger. That means that they would have showed up to family's house, they would have knocked on the door, family would have looked at them, and for whatever reason, whether it's too busy or whatever, they would have been rejected by family. They would have been pushed away. Now, put yourself in the situation in this time. They are not married. She is pregnant. It ain't his. Says it's God's. And so you're like, I know that we know the story now, like, and we believe it, but even in this time, right, this didn't just happen. People didn't just get like pregnant by God, okay? This is a miracle. And so somebody walks up to you and you're like, yeah, right. So they see this lady as they open the door about to give birth, and all they see is family in disarray and something that they can't put their stamp of approval on, that we can't care about. And so a lot of theologians actually believe that it had been family from this word kataluma that would have said, you can't stay here for whatever reason. And this has been a major thing in this time because hospitality of the Jewish culture to the family was a big deal. But also, it's very extreme, I know, but getting pregnant before you were married, one of the punishable things would to be taken to the city gates and stoned to death. I'm not talking about like, any other kind of stoned. It's like dead stoned. Big deal. And so there's a lot of Bible scholars that believe that's actually more of the way that it was taken, that they would have been completely just rejected. But here we go. What are the side that we land on who this innkeeper or this person would have been that looked at them and said, you can't stay? Either way, we come to this conclusion that Mary and Joseph were tired from travel, went a long ways, they were about to have their baby, and they were completely just disregarded. Right? And we can shame the innkeeper, right? Like, I can't believe that they would do that. Or the family member, until we realize that, like, I think we can probably see through the same lens and respond so often to life and to God in much of the same way. At this, whoever this person was, family member, innkeeper, we don't really have all those answers, but it was somebody, and we can respond very similar, and there's danger to that. Here's the first way that we can respond, and here's the first thing that I mean. It's easy to miss. Easy to miss. See, whenever things get chaotic and busy and full, it's easy to miss what's right there, right? The other day I was looking for my sunglasses, and I looked everywhere, and you know where they were, right? I'm the classic guy, on my head. I'm like, oh, we'll never do that. People are, like, they were on my head. I looked for like 5 minutes, and I'm like, I am an idiot. Because it's so easy whenever you get busy and chaotic and things get distorted to miss what's literally right in front of you. So there's this picture I saw online the other day, and I want to show you this. And like, what's up with her deformed, weird legs, or something like, there's this caption that's like, how dare you, pastor, make fun of a little girl and her deformity. But like, we're looking at this, and the caption was like, can you spot what's wrong? And I'm like, oh my gosh, like, what's up? Like, man, I feel so sorry for her. Until you realize she's holding a bag of popcorn. You may see it? Yeah. You're like, it's a bag of popcorn. And it's so crazy, though, how, like, right in front of us, right there, we just completely miss it. And you're like, oh, what is this going on? And see, that's what our brains do. See, just like distortions and like things like that can give you an optical illusion. I love trying to find optical illusions and seeing those. It can give you an optical illusion with your eyes. There can be optical illusions in our brains. It's this distortion that busyness and craziness brings that our brain wants to make up the missing pieces and try to fill in the gaps. And that's even scientific. They found that's what happens. And so even between the blinks, your brain is making up the difference. Whenever you look at something and you may not have the full picture, your brain is actually putting together what it's supposed to look like. And so often, though, like, we get it wrong, and that's not what we saw. And that's why so many times that, like, eyewitness testimonies for different things are completely wrong. They're convinced what they saw, but they'll see a security camera footage or whatever, and it's completely different. Why? Because our brains are wired in such a way to see things in peace and try to fill in the gaps. But we do that same thing in life. We see in peace. We're so busy. We're everything's screaming by, and we fill it in, and we miss what's really right in front of us so many times. We just miss what it is. As it's life coming so fast in front of us, we really miss what God is doing. That God's in our midst. We don't see that all the time on a daily basis. Why? Because we're just in survival mode. If I can make it to the end, if I can make it past Christmas, if I can make it to the end of the day, that's our only goal sometimes, is just survive, and we miss what God is trying to do. What God is doing, what God is up to in your life isn't always obvious. Like, Mary and Joseph didn't walk in with like one of those t-shirts with the arrow point down and like God baby or something, you know what I mean? Like around here, it's the arrow, and this is God baby. Like, they didn't walk in with a big banner and like a bunch of people that are walking around them banging and clanging like this is God. They didn't do that. It seemed just like another couple, right? Average, ordinary. Look up, they're just somebody else, and just we have no room. And so often in our life, we want to live the extraordinary, right? We're trying to make it there. But I would argue that so often the extraordinary is found in just the ordinary. God is working in the simple. And it's not always the most obvious things, but we're so busy, we're so chaotic, it's so crazy that we can't see what God is doing. Can you imagine, right? They sent them on their way. And then the next day and a couple of days later, these stories begin to circulate, right? Like, they begin to hear these tales about like this Messiah, the Savior, the King was born in our little bitty city. You're like, what? That's awesome. Like, these shepherds were out there and angels came down and this was an amazing thing. And then they think, that was that couple? The ones that we didn't have room for? Oh no. Can you imagine when the stories began to circulate back that they were in front of our door and we didn't let them stay. But we were full. There was nothing we could do. We can totally justify why it happened, but if they were royalty, right? If they would have came in and like you look like royalty, you would have kicked somebody out of the room to make that happen. Like, somebody important comes in, and you're doing whatever to make them room, but it was just simple, right? It was the ordinary, and they completely missed it. God so often wants to work in the things that we just miss if we're not paying attention, if we're not looking. That God is in that thing. He's in that family moment. He's in that job. He's in that thing that's so easy just to want to get past. We know that God so often works in the simple. I love this story, 1 Kings chapter 19. There's this story where Elijah is looking for a sign from God, and all these different things happening. There's roaring and this thunder, and he says he's not in the thunder. He's not in any of that. And then real simply, a still small voice, and said that God was in the still small voice. But only when focused and quiet are you able to hear a still small voice. In a loud crowd, the still small voice is still speaking. You just can't hear it. And that's so often how God works, in the stillness. But I would wonder how often we miss, just like this guy, because just life is chaotic and crazy. Here's the second thing that I think we can respond, just like the innkeeper, or I can. It's easy not to just miss, but it's easy to dismiss. And here's the difference. To miss is to overlook and be unaware. To dismiss is to look right at and just not care. You ever done that before? You dismiss somebody, something, you see the need, you see the thing, and you just like, I don't have time for that. I can't get into that right now. And so you just dismiss it. It's easy to do that. It's easy to see like I can't give my life to God, or I can't, maybe later in life. It's easy to see serving God as maybe some kind of a burden. Like, I can't really go all in and really give God all of me. And I can only imagine when this pregnant woman and this guy showed up on the doorstep, it's very easy to have looked at them and just said, we can't deal with this issue, this situation. I'm thinking like, man, business owner, that's some liability, I mean, I ain't about to be having a baby up on the sheets in this hotel right here. I mean, it ain't gonna happen. You can go find somewhere else. And it's easy to just completely dismiss what God's wanting to do in our life. We have all the excuses, right? I'm just really busy. I can't let God have that. There's so many little places and hidden areas that, like, will we let God in that? And we excuse it. We excuse how we won't help people or care about people or let God work. But really all we're doing as we make excuses to not let God in, here's what we're doing. We're really just rejecting the gift that he's wanting to give. You see, God's not wanting to come in and just put more burdens in your life and more rules and things you can't do and do all this. And so often it's easy to look at following God that way, but any rule or thing that he has, it's really just to keep you from a life that he has, that's not for you, to keep you away from the destruction that a life like that brings. He's wanting to bring the real true gift into your life. And it's what we do is we dismiss that so often in the name of so many excuses, right? I'm just too busy, got too much going on. I can't, I'll give my life to God, or I'll serve, or I'll give him that area, or whatever. I'll start being faithful in that later. All the while missing it. Like the king of all kings could have been born in their room. We have this little barbecue place that I like to go. It's south of Memphis. And when we go through that area, they were on that TV show, Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives. Anybody seen Food Network? Yeah. That's some good stuff. So Guy Fieri, as you walk into the building, there's like a big cutout of Guy Fieri, and it's this big sign that says like it's as seen on Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives. Man, they're proud of that. Can you imagine this little inn or the house or whatever if the King of Kings would have been born there? Oh my gosh, they would have had like a sign. This is where the Savior was born, like his little footprint on a piece of paper on the thing, and like come by and see. I mean, it would have been an attraction point, right? But they didn't get to do any of that. Why? Because Jesus wasn't born there, right? You would have said, birthplace of Jesus, come to Bethlehem to this inn and check out, big plaque, photo of Jesus. That's what they would have done, but they didn't get to. Instead, they probably, I would imagine, lived with regret that we didn't let him in, that we completely missed it. There are places that God wants to move in. There are places that God wants to come in and do something in your life, in your family, with what you're doing. And it's like, we just got to let him in. It's easy to overlook, right? And to make excuses, because we got them. I got a list. I've got a list of excuses. My wife has a list of to-dos. I got a list of excuses, and they are long, and some of them are really good, and they're convincing. At the end of the day, though, we can have all the excuses that we want, and you're going to miss what God's wanting to do in your life because we excuse away and we dismiss that this is a good fairy tale, it's a good story, not realizing that God is actually wanting to move in your life, right? God is actually wanting to do something. And some of us, we've been in this church thing for so long, and then they're like, it's just another thing that we do. We just kind of show up and you miss actually what he came to do. It's so easy to look and simply just kind of go on along your business or your day. I'm telling you, you're missing out. Life is busy. We can always have a reason or excuse. But in the process, don't miss what he's come to do. Here's my question. Have you maybe missed or dismissed Jesus altogether? Right? I'm not talking to the faithful ones. Like y'all are in church in December when it's the craziest season. I get it. But even in the midst of everything else we do, like have we maybe missed what God's trying to do in your life? Like decorations are up. It's on point, right? I mean, this is looking good. I was told the other day, because it was a clear day, I thought I was going to have like a relaxing day. And she's like, it sure is a good day to put the lights on the house. And so you know what I did? I told her, yes, ma'am. And I put the lights on the house. I did. And they're up. And it looks good. But how many times can we have the decorations up, the lights on the house, but Jesus is not in, right? He's not there. Don't do that. What I would say is let's not have the perspective and the response of the innkeeper. And it's so easy to be, whether this is a real guy or imagination or not, I don't know, but I know we can easily respond in a way that where we can miss and dismiss what God's wanting to do in our lives. And don't miss the gift that he's wanting to give. Don't miss the gift. The difference is we know he's the king, right? We know who he is. We know the story. Don't let it just like remain in the pages of a storybook. Today, ask yourself, is Jesus missing? Like from that area, from that thing, from me being faithful in this, I know I'm supposed to be doing that. God, I give you this area. Don't miss the gift. As we go to leave, just real fast, I got just three things that I think we can do before we leave. Just attitudes that we can begin to change to not do this. First one is this. Let's decide today to move from control to surrender. Here's what I mean. You can't control everything, but that don't stop us from trying, does it? Oh, man, I'm a control freak. But we can do that. Why do we get so exhausted and overwhelmed? It's not because so much is coming our way, but it's because we want to control everything that comes our way. And we just can't do it. You don't have the power to control everything that comes your way. The innkeeper, whoever this was, didn't know the next day that Jesus would be coming to his door. They didn't know that. Can't control everything that comes your way. You can't control everything, but you can control what you surrender to, right? You can control what your life is surrendered to. You can just surrender under the weight of the burden of everyday life and be crushed like a pancake. Right, you know what that's like? Just to get to the end of the day and like you just made it. I get it. And we're going to have days like that. We just can't have a life like that. It's miserable. We've got to decide now, not, God, I'm going to control not everything, but what I'm surrendered to. And am I just going to surrender to whatever comes my way? Or am I going to make the decision today that, God, I'm surrendered to you. So that determines everything else that I do, what I allow in my life, what I allow to control me is going to be filtered through the idea of, God, you're in control of me. I surrender to you. And there may be some things that don't make it into my life. There's some decisions I don't make. There's some places that I don't go. There's some times that I say no. Right? And I can't control everything that comes my way. There are going to be some crazy days and some crazy seasons. And there's going to be some that are not as bad. But in each one, I can't control what comes my way, but I can't control what I'm surrendered to. John 15:5, Jesus said this, I am the vine, you are the branches. Whoever abides in me or stays in me or remains in me, rests in me, and I in him, he it is that bears much fruit or produces much fruit out of their life. For apart from me, you can do some things, a little bit of things. He makes it clear you can't do nothing, right? Apart from me, you can't do nothing. I mean, we think so. Like we got that treadmill life where we're running, and you get off, and you know how far you went? Nowhere. Right? That's the life that we live so often. Like in survival mode, we're busy and we're like that duck on the water. Like they look so peaceful under the water like that. And you get done with every day and you look up and where have you been? You went nowhere. It's this control surrender thing. He says, if you rest in me, you'll produce much fruit. How much of our busy life is really just a grasp for control? Right? We got to check ourselves every day, right? Because this is going to be a battle every day to say, God, have control. See, there's a big difference in busy and productive. There's a big difference in busy and productive. You can be busy and do nothing. He says productive is remaining in me. You'll produce much fruit. That's productive. You can be busy. You do a lot of things every day and be completely miserable. What is your life producing? Second thing. Practice the pause. Practice the pause. The pause. You have to create still moments because life ain't gonna do it. Your life's not gonna create still moments for you. It's like everything stopped and you just take a breather. No, like every time there's a lull, something comes in, right? There's always a place to fill your calendar and your schedule. And I would just say this, you rarely find Jesus in the busy, in the chaos. He's always there. We just rarely find him. Why? Because we miss it. We're so busy just getting to the end of the day that we don't realize all the things he was trying to do in that day. We have to practice the pause before we make big decisions, before we let life overwhelm us, before we blow up, before we have to pause and seek him. Listen to this. Psalm 46:10. I'm sure we'd have heard this scripture before, but it says, be still. Not like be busy, 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 busy. Work hard enough and prove yourself to God. No. Here's our thing. Like it said, remain in me, right? And it said, be still and know that I'm God. Here's the thing. You think he's still God all the time? Absolutely. But it's when we're still that we know that he's God. Like, he's still God when we're busy, but you ever been in the middle of a crazy busy season and you forget that he's God, that he's bigger, right? Somehow in there, I know you wouldn't say that you're God because we're holier than that, but we kind of take that mantle on sometimes of being the God, being in control, and we're miserable, and we hate life, and it's like in those times that we don't see God working, but it says, be still. It's whenever I force myself to pull away and breathe and to seek after him, and I'm reminded, I know you're God. I know you're God. It's so easy to miss that, right? It's so easy to miss that God is there and he's speaking and he's still working. I can't afford to do that. My life's too busy. I'm going to tell you, you can't afford not to. You can't afford to not have your time with God, to pull away, to take those overwhelming moments and take 5 minutes, take 10 seconds, whatever that pause looks like in that moment, to stop, breathe, seek after God. Be still and know. He's still God. Sometimes we forget, right? We forget that he's God. I know this firsthand. Pause and seek him. And here's the very last one as we end is this. It's just lose the excuses. Right? Oh, man, I'm an excuse maker. I'm telling you, you need to come up with one, call me. I got some on backup that I haven't used yet. How would you say this? Lose the excuses. Right? How much have you missed because we have excuses to not allow God in, to not let God work, to not do this, to not do that? Life is always going to be busy. Seriously, if you're waiting for life to slow down, you may as well just be planning your funeral because that's when it's going to happen. You're going to be dead. Right? Life is not going to get to that point. Yeah, there's going to be different seasons. There's going to be, you're going to retire and you may have less demands on you or whatever that looks. But your life's never going to completely slow down. It's just not. We have to lose the excuses to quit saying, I'm not going to help that person, or I'm not going to be the light. I'm not going to be who God's called me to be. I'm not going to let God into this moment, into this thing. I'm not going to be faithful to that because whatever that excuse might be, I'm telling you, the innkeeper or the family or whoever would have rejected them would have had their excuse and their reason, right? They would have had it, probably pretty valid. But at the end of the day, as they looked up, the rooms were full, but who wasn't there? Jesus wasn't there. He made some bank that day. You know what I'm talking about? That inn was full. He ain't made that much money in a long time. He may have been charging people extra. But you know who wasn't there? Jesus. It was the busiest day he's had in a long time, probably frantic. Through all the busy, you know what wasn't there? Jesus. Let's just not get to the end of our life, to the end of this season, the end of this day, at the end of this service, and look up and say, I've done a lot of stuff, but there's no Jesus. A lot of the excuses not to make a difference. A lot of excuses not to care about other people. A lot of excuses not to let Jesus in that part, in that moment. But the whole way, all we're doing is rejecting the gift that he's wanting to give you. I'm telling you, I don't know what presents you got coming. I don't know what you're buying. But the best gift, man, was already given. And it was good. For God so loved the world. Take out that word world and put your name in there. For God so loved Eric that he gave. And all I know is I need that gift more than anything, more than I need the answer to my biggest problem at the moment. I need the power of Jesus in my life. So as you ask yourself that question, do I look and survey my life, and is Jesus missing? Maybe from that thing, and you can tell he's been calling you over here. I'm not saying it's going to be an easy process, like, oh, you're just going to make a decision today and life's going to be smooth. No, but you can know he's God. You begin to walk in what he has for you. Stop making the excuses. Stop making the excuses. Because all you're doing is making no room for him to move. Trust him. He loves you. He loves you. Would you stand up with me? He came to give, and he still does. And all the busy and the chaos and whatever else, they completely miss Jesus. Let's not do the same thing. Because Jesus is wanting to move in your life. I don't care what season you're in. Maybe you're like, I felt him before in the past. He's not done moving in your life. Maybe you're like, I don't know him. Well, he knows you, and he's got a plan for your life. As you look at your life, have I been so busy, or have I missed him? Have I dismissed him? And he's just like, I'm ready to come in. Here's the good news. Innkeeper could have been really discouraged when he hears all the stories. He may have missed Jesus, but Jesus was still there for him. He may have missed Jesus coming in, but Jesus still came to move in. He didn't miss it. Same thing with us. Maybe we've missed it so far, but Jesus still is here to move into that dark place in your life, that place you haven't surrendered, that place that you're really struggling with today. You're trying to do it on your own, trying to have control, and Jesus said you don't have to. The busyness, the chaos, the craziness, trying to control, trying to do it yourself. He said you don't have to. Would you just receive my gift? I love you. There's this story that on April 12th, 1976, a guy named Ronald Wayne, he's one of the 3 original founders of Apple computers. And he just could not see the use of personal computers in the house. He thought it was just a crazy, outlandish idea. He was too busy for that. He had other things that he wanted to do. And so what he did is he sold his 10% of the shares in Apple for $800 because he wanted to invest in slot machines. And so he was busy with everything else and like, I don't have time for that. Nobody's gonna need computers in their house. Today those shares would be worth about $60 billion. That's what I'm talking about. Just give me a little of that. But he missed it. Why? He had other things that were more important. Whatever else it was, he missed out. I know that's a lot of money, but I would just say eternity is way more important. Your life today and the plans that God has for you are way more important. Don't sell your shares so short. Let Jesus in, right? Don't miss and dismiss what he's wanting to do. We can look at that innkeeper or that family member, whoever rejected Jesus, and like, oh, horrible, I can't believe they would have done that. You know what? We can respond so easily the same way. Look and just overlook. Let's not do that today. Jesus is Emmanuel, God with us. He still came to be God with us. Let me pray for you. Father, I love you. I worship you, God. I just ask this morning, would you just come in this room right now? If your heads are bowed, I want to ask, if you're in this place and you don't know Jesus as your Savior, you've for a long time done things your own way, I'm just telling you, Jesus has come and he's come for you. And today is the perfect day. You haven't missed the boat. You haven't missed him completely. He's still here. And if you need to give your life to Christ, this is your opportunity. And if that's you, I just want to know who you are so I can pray for you. If you need to give your life to Jesus today, would you just slip your hand up so I can pray for you? Come on, in the room, if there's anybody here. Here's our second thing. If there's anybody who can identify with the innkeeper, I just want to pray for you. I think it's really all of us. Father, I lift you up. I thank you for all that you're doing. Help us to be not too busy, not too overrun, not too in control, not too whatever to miss you. Thank you for all you're doing.
Thanks for joining us online today. We want to invite you to stay connected with us throughout the week on Facebook and Instagram at City Church Lufkin. If you're looking for a church home in the Lufkin area, we'd love for you to join us on Sundays for one of our 2 services, 9 a.m. or 11 a.m. No matter who you are, where you come from, or what your life looks like, we love you and you can find a home and family right here at City Church. If you've been blessed by this ministry, we'd love to give you the opportunity to help us continue to reach others. By giving your tithes and offering, you're making a way for others to experience the love and hope of Jesus. There's a link in the description where you can go online and make a donation, or you can simply give through text. Just pull out your phone and text any dollar amount to 84321. We hope this message has encouraged you, inspired you, and helped you to see God at work in your life. We'll see you next week.